We've reached a part of the service that in the Machzor contains the Martyrology, the stories of how our people have suffered throughout the ages, and we remember those who died. It is hard for me to believe that last year at this time, we said with hope all of those prayers for a year of blessing and good fortune. In Israel these days, people are wishing each other not a Shana Tova, but a Shana Tova Yoter. Not a good year, but a better year. Because this one which has passed has been so difficult. At this moment in our services in previous years, we have had members of our congregation share their family stories from the Shoah, share memories of the bombing of the JCC in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Last year, memories from being a captive after the Yom Kippur War. Today, I want to say thank you in advance to Liran, Lavion, who is going to share with us her story, her friend's story from October 7th last year. It takes a lot of courage. I imagine that many of these prayers and a lot of this being in a conservative synagogue on Yom Kippur is strange, and I am grateful, and I hope you feel at home. Home among another part of the Jewish people. And we're grateful to you for sharing your story.
Thank you all for gathering here today. It means a lot to me, especially on Yom Kippur, as I share memories of my best friend and soul sister, Niv Raviv. Niv and I grew up together as best friends since elementary school. She meant the world to many, but for me, she was my guiding light and my support. Anyone who has a best friend like that knows exactly what I'm talking about. We were soul sisters. Yom Kippur was always a special day for her, one of her favorites. She loved to wear white, and from childhood we would ride our bikes around the neighborhood, and as we grew older, to sit outside the synagogue dreaming about what we'd eat when the fast ended, and play cards all night long. I would like to start with one of many stories that I believe describes who Niv was to me and the kind of friend she was. As a child, I was teased about the dimple that I have on my chin. Kids called me names like golf course face, or compared me to John Travolta and other ridiculous names. But at the age of 12, before entering middle school, I was so bothered by it, so I asked my parents to let me have a surgery to remove it. I felt that it made me ugly, and I thought that my life would be better without it. My parents, of course, hesitated and tried to convince me otherwise, but relatively I was very mature at a young age, and they understood that if it really bothered me, so eventually they supported me. After the doctor's appointment that confirmed that it was a very simple procedure, cosmetic procedure only, I told Niv about my plans. She listened patiently of me describing the issue, but didn't rush to give her opinion. Instead, she said she wanted to do some research before sharing her thoughts. In general, many friends or other people might have immediately dismissed my feelings with explanations like, no, you're beautiful just the way you are, you don't need it, or you won't be able to switch back, or something similar. But Neve understood that such comments wouldn't truly convince me, and it needs more than that to just say the obvious. She needs to somehow understand the issue better. So the next day she called me to share her findings. Liran, I did some research and I learned an interesting thing. So apparently a dimple is genetic, meaning that it is passed down through generations from male to female to male to female. And indeed, she was right. My father has one, and so does my grandmother. And she said, well, one day you will have a son. And when he's born, you will think he is the most beautiful thing on earth and simply perfect, and you won't want him to change a thing. And what message would it send to your son if you decided to change something about yourself that he has in him? Well, indeed, she was right. As always, I have a son. His name is Ethan, and he has a dimple in his chin, just like mine. And yes, I think he is perfect, and no, I would not want to change a thing in him. I share this story today because it exemplifies the depth of Neve's friendship. Beyond her wealth of knowledge, she never offered advice just to feel better about herself. She genuinely sought to understand who was standing in front of her, always striving to see into their hearts in her own unique way. Neve was murdered, along with her spouse, Nirel Zini, on that Black Saturday of October 7. On that day, at 9:58 in the morning, my phone rang. It was Nirel, the spouse of my dear friend Neve. Neve is hiding under the bed in the shelter room. Please pray for us. Well, the conversation lasted only 33 seconds, yet my heart felt and stopped. For a week, we fought to find out if they were safe, and every scenario we imagined grew darker. After countless anxious days, we received the dreadful knock at the door. It was the visit we all have feared from. The officers told us that Neve and Nirel were murdered at their home. Neve and Nirel moved to Kibbutz Kfar Aza after 8 beautiful years together, eager to embrace life as part of the community. Just 4 months into their new chapter, the tragedy struck. Both Neve and Nirel were pure souls who dedicated their life to help those in need. Neve was 27 with a gifted ability to see through people, and from a young age she used her gift to heal so many. Later, she naturally became a psychology student and helped children who were facing mental health challenges. Nirel, with his golden hands, worked in his family's woodworking business. He planned to start law school, holding a dream of helping PTSD survivors receive their rights. They were simply pure souls who naturally devoted their life to making our world a better place. Neve and Nirel met during their army service. He was a commander, and she was an infantry weapon instructor. He came with his company of soldiers for training, which was led by Neve. When he saw her, he was truly impressed by her skills and devotion to her role. So he decided to go to her commander and mention this to her and try to convince her that she should receive a revush. It was on a Wednesday, and when soldiers have a revush, it means that they can go home for a long weekend from Wednesday to Saturday. So he went to the commander and said that she was phenomenal and that she really reserves it to her hard work. And Nirel had such a natural charm that it was rare that someone refuses him. She, of course, approved and suggested Nirel to tell Neve that. So he did. He went up to Neve and said, listen, you were amazing. You can go home. You received a ravush. So she looked at him, not knowing him, said, thank you, turned around and wanted to run back to her room to pack her things and go home. But he said, no, wait, I'll take you. And she's like, no, it's okay. Like, she wouldn't drive with someone that she doesn't really know. But he, of course, convinced her, and she approved to take her only to the train and not fully to Netanya, where she is from. So he waited for her. And Niv and Irel had all the reasons why not to be together. He was from the south part of Israel, Moshav Tlamim. He came from an ultra-Orthodox family that was very right-wing. Niv was from the central part of Israel, secular family, very left-wing. Most of their relationships, they were going back and forth, driving to see one another. They also both have very long army service. So they had all the reasons why not to be together, because they were so different in so many ways, but their love united them. He was always afraid of how the families would meet and what would be the dynamics because of their differences. Well, the first time the family met was that Saturday night, the eve of the funeral. And that day had a mystical energy. The families have decided to bury them together and have the funeral together. That in their life and in their death, they were never separated. The whole neighborhood of Netanya, where I live and where Niv is from, everyone took flags and waited outside of Niv's family's home. Tammy, when she went out of the house, there was a young boy that just drew a flag, an Israeli flag, and held that piece of paper. And there was that sense of unity in the air that the whole neighborhood, and it's like a 15-minute drive to the funeral location. And everyone stood there in silence. And then some families started singing and praying and escorting the family. During that time, there were a lot of protests across the country, and a lot of people went out of the streets in anger and the need for hope. But on that day, people stood in the streets holding the flags with a lot of pain on one hand, but a very strong sense of unity. In the cemetery, at that moment, thousands gathered. There were religious, there were secular, there were Ashkenazim, there were Mizrahim, there were elderly and young. There were from the center part of Israel, from the periphery, from north. We really saw the whole community of Israel in that day. After the obituaries ended, everyone went outside the funeral. And the moment we finished and left the doors, it just started to slowly rain. And as we were walking closer and closer to where Niv and Nirel were buried, it just became pouring rain. We were afraid that everyone would go home, but everyone stayed. We were soaking wet in rain and tears, but we all stayed together. And there was a sense as if we all have a mission, that Niv and Nirel left us with a mission. Since that day, their longing has been unbearable. And in my struggle to cope with this immense loss, I have sought ways to honor their memory. I talk about them whenever I can, sharing with everyone I meet what wonderful friends they were, but more importantly, the types of people they were to the world. My personal grief is a reflection of a wider loss we all share. This year, let's take the spirit of unity from Yom Kippur and carry it throughout the entire year. This holy day is a reminder that our unity is created by our ability to overcome diversity, the ability to detach ourselves from dividing perspectives and try to help one another by seeing in the other's eye. Niv and Nirel inspired countless individuals in profound ways. We could have chosen to commemorate them with a statue or a monument, but I believe that there's a much deeper way. By keeping their spirit alive in our hearts and in our minds, and most importantly, in our actions. In the memory of Niv and Nirel and the need of the hour, the families established the Niv and Nirel Center in Israel to honor this remarkable young couple, driven by a deep desire to improve the lives of those who are suffering from the invisible wounds of PTSD. The Niv and Nirel Center was opened last month, and it stands as a beacon of hope, a pioneering world-class trauma and rehabilitation facility dedicated to providing state-of-the-art treatment for victims of combat-related trauma. Well, the mission is clear: to help patients reclaim their lives and restore their future. At the heart of the Niv Nirel Center is a variety of specialized services, including individual, couple, and family therapies, mind-body interventions, and innovative technologies aimed at promoting healing. This approach extends beyond treatment to offer a holistic approach in employment, education, and any other legal matters. This place is located in Israel, right on a cliff with the most amazing view. And I invite anyone who visits Israel to come feel that energy of that place, because I really believe that this is just a reflection of the people that they were. We just recently moved here around 2 months ago, my family and I, from Israel. And there's a very heavy atmosphere in Israel of a lot of people being in trauma. And it's not only October 7. One of the patients of the center was a 72-year-old that suffered from PTSD from the Yom Kippur War. And he did go to work and he married. So he had PTSD, but not in a sense that he was functional. But his grandchild showed him an image and a video from October 7, and he collapsed. This center brings hope back to the community of Israel, giving them an option to be healed and to continue for a better future. Together in this initiative, we hope to heal, and we hope that it could be accessible to all those who seek it. Of course, if anyone wants to hear more about this, I would be happy to dive into that more, but I believe that our unity will allow us to turn their dreams into a reality, and for many, we will let them live within us and revive their existence through our everyday actions in order to make our world a bit of a better place. And I always like to end with the question, how can you be more, Niv and Nirel?